a heartbeat, and people have a say. And I think that is fantastic. I think all ideas are welcome in this environment. Whether we can all manage that as well as we could or should, I think we're going through a period where we work out how to do that. But I think what we are experiencing is the original concept of democracy, where it's not executive government who controls the agenda entirely. You don't just vote in a majority team and then switch off for 3 years. The Parliament's alive. Anything can happen. All issues are on the table and all issues will be discussed. Some of that frightens people. Early on, the whole topic of same-sex marriage, I think, was something that scared community when it was even raised as an idea. The mandatory pre-commitment on gaming is something that I think has certainly challenged communities such as ours. Pricing carbon, actually doing it rather than talking about it, has actually, I think, flared up community and caused division. And it's easy politics then to run no and negative campaigns on the back of that. It's great fodder for the talkback radio heroes of the world to rip in from the sidelines. But when you're in the arena, this is what you go into it for. You know, this is a rare moment, I think, for parliaments to prove themselves up and for Australia to prove we can handle a parliament that is alive. I hope we can. I hope over time there will be a recognition that what goes into a parliament isn't so much to be feared. It's what necessarily comes out that we've all got to participate in a healthy way and make sure that we get the best policies we can. And in my view, so far so good. 110 pieces of legislation have passed the Parliament. We are doing things now that focus on the longer term rather than the shorter term. And in my time over the last decade in public life, that has been a constant criticism of government, state and federal. You know, the whole prism is short-term, 2 or 3 years, rather than looking at the long-term issues of Australia. Well, we are looking long-term now, and I do think that scares and frightens and confronts plenty of people and confronts plenty of politicians. But we'll get through, and I think on reflection, if this stays stable for 3 years, if no one, dies through the process and it can remain as a stable government for 3 years, I would hope we all reflect that it was a very healthy time in Australian democracy that achieved a lot for future generations. Before we take any more questions, I do want to answer the question about power bills and why they are so high now.
Will you say something before you answer the question? Let me just add a little bit to it, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So our power bills have already gone up substantially, and a lot of that has been to provide money for the other forms of power, that is wind generation and solar power. Now, our power bills have gone up again 80% in New South Wales. That's from the 1st of July. Now, the carbon tax is an escalator tax. So it starts off at a certain percentage and it goes up every year. So our power bills are going to continue to go up and up and up. And we're not very happy about that because we've got to pay them. Now there's one other question. Well, I'm talking personally, Now, all the businesses in Australia have to also pay power bills. And constantly increasing power bills to pay for alternative power sources is going to make our businesses in Australia continually less competitive. It's going to increase the cost base of all of our businesses, other than possibly the mining business, and it's going to make us less competitive in the world. And this is going to be very, very hard for Australian business. It's going to cause unemployment. It's going to cause a lot of long-term pain to the people in this country. And that is why the best thing that you could do for your people is to vote against the standard carbon tax. We'd like you to consider our opinion, and if you wanted the respect of this community, the best thing you could do would be to vote against this tax, because it's an unnecessary tax, and no matter what you say, the rest of the world are not doing it. They're talking about things, but they're not actually doing anything. They're not, and our tax is 10 times theirs, so that makes us 10 times less competitive. This is a very, very big issue, Rob.
I would understand.
We would like you,
I've got your point.
as a man, do something about it.
Yeah, I am a man, I agree. Look, that is factually incorrect, the last point, that we are streets ahead and in crazy country ahead of the global community.
Not yet.
Well, we are not. We are not. No, we are not. That is factually incorrect, so I'd love you to source where you're getting that information from, because it is factually incorrect.
Nobody's got a tax lockout. Everybody knows that.
Prove it. Well, what is your source for that information? It is factually incorrect. So the point of our power bills is not. That is correct. And there is a real reason, and so if you are serious about this, and not just trying to bash me up about a price on carbon, if you are serious about dealing with the real reason all our bills have gone up a fair bit, and mine included, more than 50% in the last 3 years.
You might be afford it, you know.
Sorry?
You make them afford it, you know.
Okay. No, I still pay, I assure you, with 4 young children, I pay a substantial power bill.
It's likely to go much higher. Much higher.
But separate from, if you are serious about this issue of trying to level out power prices in this country and electricity prices in our community, the major component of that is what I consider to be a rort going on state-based electricity poles and wires companies. It has been defined by Rob Garno, and probably that's a name you don't want to hear, but he has picked up through his work in this that the vast majority of the cost is a risk-free investment scheme that state governments, I'm not whacking New South Wales in particular, but state governments, poles and wires companies, have, with their own agencies, been upping the cost of their so-called reinvestment in poles and wires so that they get a greater return on the investment made. In 2009, they appealed to themselves and got more money. They got an 8.8% rate of return in 2009, and they thought that wasn't good enough. So they went back to the state government, got it up to 10%. That 1.2% equates to $1.9 billion extra dollars out of all of our pockets. That is a rort, and for no extra works, for no extra reason. So the vast majority of the reason why electricity bills have gone so high so quickly is this poles and wires rort. Yes, there's got to be maintenance and replacement. Yes, there's got to be work done. So yes, there is going to be a component of the cost into the future. But for the state to determine how much it charges itself when it does its own investment is an absolute joke that we should be holding town meetings like this about, to blow up about. Yeah. But no one seems to want to know about it. Everyone's just fingering a price on carbon and to blame for everything. Yeah, it is a much smaller component of the real problem. As far as your argument it's an escalated tax, that is incorrect. It is not going to go up and up and up as the direct cost.
That's what the Prime Minister said.
No,
it goes up every year by an increment.
The $23 a tonne, they're not your or my bill. The business community is working this out pretty quickly. They've got two options.
Goes up, our bill's going to have to go up.
No, we live in a land of innovation. No. The Treasury modelling doesn't say that at all. If the first thing we can do is knock off this poles and wires issue and get some sense into that. We will level out our electricity bills pretty quickly if we get some smart regulation rather than some failed regulation. But as far as the price on carbon goes, and when we go to a floating price, which more than likely in 2015 is expected to end up around $29 a tonne from the starting price of around $23 a tonne, it doesn't directly equate that the upfront price per polluter of a direct payment then means you're going to pay more for your electricity bill. Why? Because over time we will see more innovation and more change, and therefore more options in the way you can purchase your electricity. And the best example of all, as a consumer, if we're running a consumer argument, and I hope that it's here, if we bring it to August, who gets Choice magazine? Anyone? It's independent from governments of both sides. It'll kick them hard. It is the consumer's friend. That is the whole point of the magazine. In its article this week, it says an emissions trading scheme, as it's been shaped, is the best option available for consumers in making sure there are minimal costs while getting behaviour change amongst top-end polluters. We are simply splitting off emissions growth from economic growth, and we can do it. It's happened in other emissions trading schemes around the world. We are no different. This is not going to be a deal breaker for the economy.
The majority of Australian people disagree with you, Rob.
No.
You're supporting
you had two goes. And in regards to this issue of if the moment is about the majority supporting I should change, you are asking me to do what the Liberal Party and the Labor Party have done over time and been criticised for. You're asking me to ignore scientific advice and economic advice. You're asking me to be a radical. I am taking the low-cost, low-risk, conservative approach to my representation to you. I'm not going to radicalise on your behalf just to be a populist. No. This is the right decision to...
Well, you're wrong.
Okay, if that's what it comes down to, I'm wrong. Fair enough. You have the power of the ballot book, and by all means use it, sir.
Somebody else.
You find out that you are wrong. I'm sorry.
I pointed to the man behind, but then I'll come back to you.